Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 101. Jim Snow, Big Whitetails, and the Eurohanger. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Jana Waller from Skullbound TV, and you're listening to my favorite podcast on Stitcher, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Daniel Lee Martin with Brotherhood Outdoors, and you are in the right place. You are listening to my good buddies over there at the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Zach Doyle with the Rackpacker Outdoors, and you're listening to my favorite podcast of all time, the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm also here with my good friend from Ohio, Dusty Phillips. Dusty, how you doing, man?
No, I'm doing great. Doing great. Yeah, it's getting into late spring. Crops are starting to show themselves here in Ohio, Buckeye State. Everybody's getting their crops planted. You know what that means. Antler growth is upon us.
Yes, it is. It'll, and deer season will be here before you know it. Just a few months away, which is crazy to think that we're just that close.
Oh, yeah. It's just this is right around the corner, really.
Right. Now, how do you treat your racks or your mounts? Do you have a special way that you like to prepare them? Are they all shoulder mounts, or do you do some European mounts?
Oh, I definitely got some European mounts. I like a good skull mount.
Okay, I do too. It's actually my preferred method for most bucks that I have. And it just, quite frankly, I can do it at home. I'm not a taxidermist, but it still presents nicely and enough to get it done. But
right,
when you're done with that, now what do? How do you hang it on the wall?
Oh, I tell you, I struggled for years. It was a struggle trying to figure out how to hang these skull mounts on the wall. It was miserable. I'd have them sitting around everywhere. The nose pieces get broken off. And I've even heard of people getting the tines broken off because they're just laying around. It's very hard to hang a skull mount. You can have a big, huge wood placard, but that's just something that I wasn't attracted to. But it's okay if you do that.
Right.
But, there's other ways out there. And I found a product that hung the skull mounts in a professional way. It's very clean, very unique, and it holds the head steady. It's perfect for the European skull mount trophy that you've either harvested, found, somebody's given you, and you want to display it on the wall without getting it all messed up sitting on the floor. I know a lot of listeners out there, they're going to be like, man, I got a skull laying right over here.
Right.
The EuroHanger, I guarantee you like the way it hangs.
And you found this product where? How did you find this particular item?
I was just cruising through Facebook one time.
Okay.
And that's how I located them. And it was just a coincidental thing that I found the EuroHanger. And it's kind of funky spelled in a sense that it's spelled right. But it's spelled EuroHanger. It's all one word.
Okay.
EuroHanger.
EuroHanger. Got it.
You can go to facebook.com/EuroHanger, and you can also order them on eBay. Just go to ebay.com and type in EuroHanger right there at eBay. You can order them. It's a pretty simple way to order it. They're affordable, and if once you get one, you're going to order more. I guarantee it.
Right. And you started playing around with this product, and then you met the owner of the product.
I got with the owner, Jim Snow.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is our guest today on the show.
He is, and turns out he's a passionate deer hunter like the rest of us.
Absolutely, and I met Jim Snow, and I got to talk with him, and I invited him over to Chubby Tines Outdoors, which is my page, and we got to talking, and I'm always looking for new sponsors to do giveaways and a few different things that we can offer there at Chubby Tines Outdoors right here on Facebook. But I got to talk with Jim Snow, and Jim Snow joined up with me and sponsored Chubby Tines Outdoors, and been with me for 2 years now, and man, what a great product, and he stands behind it, and you got an issue with it, he'll try to resolve it with you, and that right. Says a whole lot to me.
is a really good individual person. Like, he's a good person, and that's who we request to be a guest on our show. And he gets he's sharing his deer hunts from Ohio, your home state where he lives, and his deer hunt of a lifetime in Missouri. And there's a very unique twist to the end of that tale. But I'm going to let Jim tell that story.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we're going to get in some great deer stories and some great content for the listeners.
Yes. So let's not hold out anymore. Let's go get Jim and have him tell us his stories about Ohio, the Eurohanger, and a deer hunt in Missouri.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Jim Snow, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, Jim?
Thank you. We're doing pretty good tonight.
Excellent. Where's home, Jim? Where are you hanging out right now?
I live, I'm out in Sticks. My closest town to me is probably Warsaw, Ohio. I'm about 7 miles north of Warsaw.
Gotcha. So you're a Buckeye like Dusty is.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we like the Ohio State. I'm a fan, and I've been there just once in my life, and wasn't really during. I guess it was during deer hunting season, wasn't it, Dusty?
Yeah, it was cold, boy.
It was cold. We weren't doing much hunting, but I got to take a good look around, and I was very excited. And it was a completely different experience from the terrain that I'm used to here in New Hampshire. So I need to get back there at some point and hang out with you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Jim, have you lived in Ohio your whole life?
I have, yes. I'm 43, and I actually I built my house within a mile from where I grew up. So.
Oh, no kidding. And what was life like growing up in your part of Ohio?
Oh, it was, we're out in the country, so, it's quiet and, mostly woods. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the woods, exploring like any other kid does, and just out and about, anything outdoors,
Gotcha. And that's where all the outdoor adventures that you participate in now stem from your childhood and back to that type of being in the country type setting. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was always squirrel hunting or rabbit hunting, whatever I could do.
Very cool. Very cool. So how was the deer hunting growing up back then? Actually, let's back up a sec. How old are you now?
I'm 43.
43. Okay. I understand 43 because I am 43. And,
oh, great.
Yeah,
you guys are old.
Yeah, Dusty's like a baby over there.
I had to say it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Every time I open my mouth about my age, he just, it's his opportunity to hit the ball out of the park. And he never, ever doesn't do that. He just has to. It's like his thing. So 43. So you're born in 71. And
yep.
So let's see, 1971. What was deer hunting like back? So you probably went hunting when you were 5 or so.
I started hunting when I was 10.
10. Okay. So 1981. What was deer hunting like in 1981 in Ohio?
Well, I don't remember seeing a whole lot of deer hunting,
Okay.
and even going back when I was younger, I remember my dad always gun hunted, and I remember, I just remember him coming back in from hunting. I don't ever remember him shooting anything.
Interesting.
And it was kind of strange. When I got to be about 10, by then, of course, my dad had lost interest, and but luckily I had an uncle that always gun hunted, and that's what I started to do first. That's what I lived for, that week of gun season. And I would always, my mom and dad let me take a week off of school and deer hunt. And I the first couple of years I didn't kill anything, and then consistently then I would take a doe at least one a year. And I believe back then that's all they allowed you was just one, either or, and I think, let's see, I killed my first buck in 88 actually, and it was just a basket rack. And my first large buck was 95, and it was 160 inch 13 point. And I killed it on my home place there where I was raised.
That's a nice deer.
And Yeah, oh yeah. After that, I was all about the big bucks.
So what happened to the deer population, or was it a population thing? Dusty, chime in here too if you know whatever's going on here. So you didn't see a lot of deer back in '81. Were there less deer in Ohio, or was it just your experience level?
I'd say it was just not the population. I mean, we were out there. It was a little. The hunting style my uncle did was usually, deer drives, and he knew this guy that owned this farm, and we never seemed to spend a lot of time in any one place, but we just go in and drive it and out. And but I what I do know is now I see a lot more deer than I ever did, as a kid.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, and that boils down to that the deer herd just wasn't here in the 80s.
Is that right? Interesting.
Yeah, it was very unusual to, in the 70s to even see a deer. Southern Ohio, yeah, there might have been a little more, but I've done a little research talking to some hunters that really thrived in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they're telling me that it was really odd to see a deer, even up to 87, 88. Then it started picking up. That's what they're telling me.
That's fascinating. So this is like a really nice tale in game management and letting your herd grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes from too many tags and, a big kill and weather conditions. And the deer just wasn't in the area quite as much. Back then you had pheasant and quail. It was thriving. And now that's kind of died off a little bit, the deer have picked up.
Gotcha. So, Jim, knowing what you know now, what would you tell that 10-year-old Jim Snow back then about deer hunting?
I'd have told him to pick up a bow and leave that gun in the gun cabinet.
Right. That's a good one. That's a very good point. Excellent.
Honestly, yeah. I learned. I took some advice from my very wise taxidermist in probably 2003. He saw how excited I was with big bucks, and he said Jim, he had done taxidermy for 30 some years, and he said the guys that bring me big bucks year after year consistently, the same guys, they kill them with a bow, and they use scent controlled clothes. And at the time, I was just a gun hunter, and I didn't even worry about scent that much, because you guys gun hunt at all, usually gun season they're just running around scared for the most part. With bow hunting, absolutely completely different situation. I started learning so much more about deer bow hunting. You can study them in their own, doing their own everyday thing. You learn more about their body language. And so, yeah, I guess looking back, I wish I'd have started bow hunting a lot earlier.
That's a good point. All right, so let's talk about the deer body language a little bit. What have you learned about that now that you've been training yourself with the bow? What types of things are they saying to you?
Well, we can always tell. I usually hunt with my son, and it's kind of funny because we know. You get one deer in the field, and when that next one's coming because just their ears alone. If they hear a noise, they're always going to throw an ear towards it. But when they've got both ears concentrated in that direction, 99 times out of 100, a deer's going to walk out. They just throw one ear over there. It's usually nothing. Maybe it's a squirrel or scampering, but every time their eyes and both ears is in that general direction, there's a deer walking out. So.
That's a good one.
That's one of the biggest. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things we've noticed.
Gotcha.
It's kind of a game for my son and I when we're hunting. We're like, here comes one. Get ready.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure enough. Yeah.
What else? What else do you notice?
Just how they, during the rut, you can almost tell when a buck's going to come in the field. I mean, if you've already got a buck out in the field. They immediately start getting stiff. I mean, long before you see the other buck coming, how they stiffen up and they bristle. It's almost a great early warning sign to get your bow off the hook. They start to do stiff legging. They can 90%. I think what they go off of is smell, but just that alone has been a big factor. Seeing them do their everyday thing instead of just running around scared has been great.
Gotcha.
It's a lot more relaxing.
Dusty, seeing we're on the subject of deer language, what types of things would you throw into that?
The tail movement, there's different signs of, what kind is going on, if that's stuff that you can study as you're out there in the woods. But, Jim touched base on a little bit about a smaller buck getting stiffened up whenever a larger buck, mature buck's coming into an area. They almost tell you the story before it happens. If you really pay attention to the deer herd as different animals are coming in to the area, they'll almost let you know what's going on before it even happens. But it takes some experience. That's not something that you're going to be able to notice your first few times in the woods. It just takes time.
Yeah, I mean those things are really hard to read in a textbook or listen to on a podcast, and then recognize it in the field. It's almost like you have to see it a couple times before you could use that knowledge to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. That all comes with experience and a lot of seat time. And they act a little bit different when a coyote's coming in. It's almost like they get playful, skirtish.
Right.
And that's something that you can recognize right off the bat, and you know exactly what's coming before it happens, because their actions and the way they are presenting themselves in a different manner than normal conditions. If they're walking in a line, you got a group of deer coming in, they're all walking nose to tail on each other. Watch that and really focus on what the lead doe or the lead buck's doing, so that the next time you get in a situation that, this is what he did when he had another buck behind him. And that way you can recognize if there's another deer coming. It's just all things that over time you'll pick up with experience.
Yeah, and I mean that's stuff I love capturing here, and it's priceless information. But yeah, I guess you wouldn't really apply it until you saw it. But that's some really good information right there. We haven't really talked about much.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's often overlooked. You just you see the antlers, you see the deer. You don't really go beyond that and focus on what's coming or what's the deer doing, how's he acting before the other, and then 30 seconds goes by, or a minute or 5 minutes goes by, and there's another mature or larger buck or even the same size buck coming with him. That deer done notified me. I'm an experienced hunter. Not saying I'm the best, but throughout year after year after year of watching deer bring other deer through my area, that first deer that comes through notifies me that there's more deer to come.
Right.
That makes sense?
Absolutely. And this is the types of things that you're reading as you're out there. Gotcha. Yep. Good stuff.
And sometimes you don't even realize it, that you see it a couple times and you see the same things happening after, and you're like, oh, okay, now I see.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are probably things that that you didn't know until I asked you the question, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Jim, you're an Ohio hunter. You live in Ohio, but you don't hunt Ohio all the time, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I do have. I've got a good friend that used to live here in Ohio. I used to work with him, and he moved to Missouri, bought a big farm in Missouri, and I've hunted out there 4 seasons, once gun season. And then I was back 3 times now with bow, and I was fortunate enough. I've killed 2 nice bucks on him out there. Yeah, great farm. He's got 1,550 acres out there.
Wow. Okay. So how does Ohio differ from Missouri? Are there any differences that you notice right off the bat?
Of course, Missouri is, mainly farmland. He's in the northern. He's almost in Iowa. He's just 2 counties down from Iowa, and going out there for the first time, I was just amazed with, how flat and wide open everything is. Probably all of that 1,550 acres, except maybe 300 of it is tillable. So,
wow.
You're hunting. There's a river that basically borders their whole property, and there's a section maybe. It varies, but anywhere from 50 yards to 100 yards from that river is grown up. It's not tillable because the flood waters will wash it out and whatnot, and there'll be trees and some underbrush. But that's where you hunt. You're hunting along that river. There's just a couple drainage ditches that are growed up. That's where you're hunting. Other than where I hunt here at home, there's woods everywhere here, and it's hilly, and there's valleys. So yes, the terrain is definitely different. And, you know, being out there, I thought it was going to be a little easier because there is a less woods, but it's not the case. The first year I bow hunted out there, I hunted 2 days, daylight till dark, and never seen a deer. And I was hunting along a trail that was cut in, you know, probably 3 or 4 inches in the ground. It's like the deer are they're either here or they're 5 miles away. Is the way it seemed.
Gotcha. So this is a loaded question, but which do you like better, Ohio or Missouri for deer hunting?
Oh, Ohio, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Going back to your roots.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna get in a quick question there. You know, Jim, you say that you go from Ohio to Missouri to hunt. Tell us a little bit about how do you prep for a trip like that?
Oh, of course, it's about a 13-hour drive, and the big thing for me to prep is the drive time. You know, obviously I don't go by myself. I usually take, this last year I took my son with me and another buddy from work, but I've always hated long trips, which it tells you how much I love to hunt because I hate driving and I hate riding in a car that long. But I get some anxiety built up right before I go just because of the long trip. So for me personally, I've got to usually mentally prepare myself. I'm great once I get going, but it's like, you know, I'm always afraid I'm going to forget something or, you know, something's going to happen on the way out. I usually get a little anxiety built up at the beginning. So once I get over that, once we get going, everything seems to be, you know, a lot better for me. But there's that. And luckily, Missouri isn't you can buy your tag over the counter. It's not a lottery draw. So, you know, there's no special. You don't have to jump through any special hoops to get a tag like you do some of the states.
Right, so you can just walk into any pro shop or where they sell a license and pick it up on the way in.
Yes, practically any gas station out there, it seems like.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Why is it like that?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's definitely, it's a different world out there.
And what do you have to do in Ohio? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
You can walk in, you know, any. Usually here in Ohio, I don't see them at a gas station, but you know, in Missouri, we stay in a hotel, the nearest town from my buddy's farm, and that's probably 10 minutes away from the farm. But there's a gas station, you know, they little like convenient type store, and that's where we get our hunting license. I've never seen that anywhere here in Ohio. Usually it's, you know, a Walmart or some kind of sporting goods store.
Gotcha. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of this. I know that you shot a nice deer in Missouri, and you mentioned in the pre-show chat that it was one of your most memorable hunts. I'd like to kind of break that down if we could and kind of see what you used, and maybe even after that get into an Ohio hunt, one of your most memorable Ohio hunts. But I'd like to kind of break down the Missouri hunt first if we could and see if we can dissect it and learn a few things about how you approached it and see if we can add those tricks to our own bag of goodies.
Okay. Well, actually, the most memorable hunt out there, I didn't get the deer.
That's okay.
It was this past season. I came home with my tag, but like I said, I'll remember this hunt till the day I die because I've never seen anything like it, and I know I've told people this story, and they probably don't even believe me because I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it. How it ended up, but I was hunting. It was the second night out, and I was hunting. He's got a ladder stand out there about 20 feet up, and I'm probably 100 yards from the river. You know, there's a lot of undergrowth up, some trees, a lot of underbrush, and it was probably an hour before dark. Hadn't seen the thing, and as I'm sitting there daydreaming, I hear a grunt, and so the first thing I do is I get my grunt tube out of my coat, you know, and get it ready. I take my bow off the hook, stand up off the seat, and I start looking in the direction of the grunt. It was a decent way off, but I could hear it. And it started picking up, you know, getting more intense, and then I could hear brush cracking. And within a couple of minutes, a doe just came running full blast out of the brush, my direction. And where she ran out of the brush, she was probably 150 yards, and she was just flying, and exactly what I pictured come out of the brush behind her, the big rack buck. And I've heard bucks grunt after dozing before, but nothing like this. This was, it was the roar. He was so aggravated that she wasn't going to stop. Oh, it was the most intense thing I've ever heard come out of a deer. And they were running full speed, and I knew I was going to have trouble stopping them. As they got close, I come back to full draw, and I did the, same thing everybody does, the whole, trying to get their attention.
Sure.
Nothing, she didn't look at me, he didn't look at me, and I yelled, hey, just as loud as I could yell, and neither one of them looked at me. When they got right to me, she turned and ran directly away from me, ran towards the river, and he ran behind, right behind her, followed her. And, that big adrenaline rush, I was like, I just sat back down on my seat as I watched him run out of sight towards the river. And he was grunting the whole way. And I just kind of sat down there for a second to gather myself, trying to think, what could I have done different? Should I have shot on the run? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? And I got to thinking, that's the pretty deep part of the river where they were headed. There's a few places that's shallow that they can cross, and that wasn't one of them. So I got my grunt, and I started blowing that grunt just like he was grunting. Just that long, that roar, as loud as I could get that thing to go without it sounding like a goose.
Yeah.
And sure enough, here she come. She come running right back at me out of the same spot she ran in. So I stood up again. I kind of flipped my grunt around my back so it wouldn't interfere with my string. And she evidently saw me stand up, and she stopped and looked at me. And I'm already at full draw. He come right up behind her, and he never looked up at me once. It was just intent on staring at her. And I released the arrow and watched it just under his vital. It went in, but low. And I knew it was a low shot, but I thought, it still might be heart. But I watched it go right through him. And he just stands there looking at her, and she's looking at me. And I'm thinking to myself, God, start wobbling. You know how they do when they're hit, and they don't know it. They just kind of start wobbling and they go down.
Right.
I'm thinking, come on, man. All he did was just, when that arrow went through him, he just kind of hunched, and he slowly turns and looks up at me. And that's when I got a good look at his rack. And he was the biggest buck I'd ever shot at.
Oh, wow.
And as he's staring at me, I look over at my quiver. I have my quiver hanging on a hook, and I'm looking at him, and I'm trying to get the arrow out of the quiver, and he lets me knock another arrow, and he stops looking at me, and he looked at that doe, and it was almost like he was like, "Oh yeah, you stopped finally," and he mounted that doe.
No way.
I put a 2-blade rage right through him, which had to be right under his heart, and he bred that doe, and he moved maybe another 15 feet from where I'd first shot at him.
Yeah.
And that doe just kind of squirted out from under him, and he was standing there broadside again, just a little quartering away. And I knew that my first shot, it was evidently a little further than I anticipated. That's why that shot was low. So I allowed for it a little bit further this time. I released the second arrow, and being quartering away, I should have put it a little back further in the ribs and let it angle up into the vitals. Well, I didn't. I put in the excitement, I put the pin right on his shoulder, and I hit him right in the shoulder. But it was at that angle, I evidently didn't hit anything vital, but it hurt him. And he ran up into the brush a little bit, and I could see him standing there. And the doe was up ahead of him, and he's still looking at that doe after I hit him with 2 range broadheads. And he walked into the brush with her, and I started grunting again just to see what would happen. And I brought the doe back out with that grunt, and he never come out of the brush. And I just sat there. I let it get dark. I didn't even try to find my arrow. I just went back to the garage with the guys, told them I hit one, and we went out for supper, giving plenty of time because after the story, obviously, I knew that first shot wasn't, because if it hit anything vital, it would have been his heart, and he wouldn't have went that far. But we give him probably 4.5 hours, and we went back. I found the first arrow in the first blood pile where he was standing.
Yep.
And looking back at my tree, it was probably close to 35 yards, and I was only anticipating about 25.
Okay.
So that's why that first shot went the way it did. We found the second blood spot and the second arrow, and there was blood. I don't know. It's one of them things where you don't know how he's still walking, losing that much blood. We tracked him for probably 150 yards, and it was just one of them things where you just think around the next corner he's got to be laying there. And we never found him. I didn't find him that night. Decided to back out. We come back in the daylight the next morning, and we grid searched this whole area and never found another sign of him.
Wow.
The only thing that my buddy figured that owned the place is he might have made it to the river. And if he did make it across the river, he's made it over on the neighbor. If not, he might have got washed down the river. I know my buddy had went out during, when there was a good snow on.
Yeah.
This year, a lot of times you could find bloody coyote tracks. I've followed bloody coyote tracks back to dead deer before.
Sure.
And he never seen a sign of him. But I never would have thought in a million years, after putting an arrow through the deer, that he would have mounted that doe. That's how intense that he was chasing her, and she was obviously ready, and he knew it.
Yeah. That
she was going to stand any second, and that's what it was. I could see the whites of his eyes. That's how rut crazed he was.
Right.
I would have hated to have been on the ground, with him. I'm glad I was 20 foot in the tree.
That rut that deer get into, it's like a trance.
It is.
And I've seen this stuff before where I got a call from a buddy who said that he had hit one in the dusk of the night before, and he had to work the next day and asked if me and another buddy could go in and just see what we could find. Of course, you always say yes to that, thinking that we might find a dead deer. Well, we didn't find a dead deer. We found the same deer still walking around, fully executing scrapes and rubs and pretending like he wasn't even hit, but he was limping like a son of a gun. Neither of us ever got a shot, and when the adrenaline was on, he was gone. But he made some of the biggest scrapes I'd ever seen, and he was hit pretty square, but he didn't go down. So, but it's amazing what they don't let bother them, especially in that rut phase.
Yeah,
it's intense.
Yeah, that's what gets them. That's what usually gets them killed, during season and hit by cars. They throw all caution to the wind.
Well, I'm sorry you didn't get that deer, Jim, but that's a great story. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like I said, I still can't believe it when I seen it.
Now, how was it that you picked that particular spot to hunt that day?
Actually, that stand was one my buddy put up for rifle season, and he said the neighbor has a good view of that area. He sees deer coming in and out of that area. He sits up and glasses a lot, and he had told my buddy that he had seen nice bucks coming in and out of there a lot. And my buddy said, when my buddy told me about the stand, he said, "Now it's kind of out in the open," and it was a small tree. And when I was walking to it, I'm thinking, I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. I'm 6'1", about 195. I'm thinking, man, this deer's going to see me a mile away. Well, that is the same stand that the season before I killed a 140-inch deer out of, and he did see me, but he seen something. He didn't know what I was. As he come down the trail, he looked up at me, and I was already ready to draw, and he looked at me just for a second, and he just kind of turned and gave me that broadside shot, and that all worked out because that was the 20-yard shot that I've been waiting on. But yeah, there's that area. When I look at it, I go to like Google Maps,
yep,
and look at that area. You can literally see the deer trails from space.
Wow.
I know it sounds funny, but when you zoom in on Google Maps, you can see the deer trails that are going through that area. It's a natural funnel because it's, like I said, there's only so many places that the deer travel out there because, in it next down, in certain places. So it's a really tight funnel.
Right. All right. So this is interesting. This is an interesting topic. I've never heard this before. Granted, I'm in New Hampshire, and we don't have a huge deer population, so the chances of me and I use Google Maps all the time to hunt. What does it look like from Google Maps? What am I looking for?
Oh, I mean, you can.
This looks like a path.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like a cow path is what I always thought. My grandpa had cows, and they would run the same exact trail, 2 or 3 times a day, and that's what these trails look like.
Interesting.
It looks like a walking path. Yeah.
Dusty, you ever seen this stuff on Google Maps?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to chime in there. It's, there's a couple areas around that really heavily traveled deer trails. And a lot of them, you can actually, believe it or not, there's a couple times that I've been able to see snow pictures from, I can't remember the page that I seen it on, but it actually showed aerial snow pictures.
Yeah.
With snow on the ground, you can see the same trails in the snow where them deer have been wallering them out.
Really?
Yeah, Google Maps, I'll have to look it up and find the exact location, but I'll be able to show you one of them, Jay. I got a place down in Southern Ohio that you could see them, and they was like a clear-cut woods,
Yeah.
They went and clear-cut it, and you can actually pinpoint where these most active trails were in the clear-cut.
Gotcha. That's fascinating. That's the stuff I don't get to engage in where I'm from. So, Jim, tell us about the prep that you put into that hunt. Was there anything else that you prepared for? Did you have a certain type of scent killer? What did you do that day that you think might have increased your odds?
Oh, definitely the scent. I several years ago I started buying the scent blocker suits. Those carbon suits, and now they've even advanced their technology away from carbon to some kind of other synthetic type of scent control, but without that, I think that's one of the biggest advances, that and the trail cameras, as far as successful deer hunts go. Because, even the scent lock suits aren't 100%, but they're still going to smell you a little bit if they're downwind. But the difference is, instead of them smelling you at 300 yards away, they might smell you at 20 yards, and then it's too late for them.
Right.
That's the difference. And it's just the whole package, the scent-free soap and the scent-free shampoo. And I use the scent lock bags, to store my clothes in. And there's definitely a ritual.
Okay.
I go through the Hunter Specialties Scent-Away, the Fresh Earth wafers I put in the bag with my clothes, and the spray. Yeah, I definitely. Because, if you don't, the hunt's over if they smell you. There's no doubt about it. They know exactly what you are.
So it sounds like every precaution that you can take to eliminate your smell, you take.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I've read other articles where guys may take it a little further, like, they don't eat spicy foods, during hunting season, which I don't necessarily look at that. I might not eat, something with garlic on it, right before I hunt. But
sure,
it's a big factor. Like I said, you could be in the greatest spot in the world, and if they smell you, it's not going to matter.
Well, this is an interesting topic about garlic. There are certain things that I think are found naturally. Well, not necessarily naturally, but they're found in gardens. They're found in earth.
Sure.
Garlic's one of those things. Do you think that garlic would cause a deer to recognize garlic as a human danger thing, or is it just
maybe not a human in particular, but I think any odd smell, anything out of the ordinary that they're not accustomed to smelling would definitely put a mature deer on high alert.
Right. Dusty, what's your call on that diet and garlic and things like that?
I like to eat too much. I don't worry about it.
All right. Excellent.
It's 90% luck in my eyes. You're at the right place, the right time. A big mature buck don't get big antlers on top of his head for being not a good hide and seek player. I'll say that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't. I guess if you was just eating garlic all the time, and early season, you might have a little bit of sweat walking in or something, then you might have an issue. But right. You'd have to really, really be attacking the garlic, I would say.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jim, take us back home to Ohio. Now we've gone through your Missouri hunt. Take us back home to Ohio. Think of a time that is comparable to the Missouri hunt. Is there a deer hunt that you can think of in Ohio that you would say is maybe your second most memorable hunt?
Yeah, that would probably have to be the first really big buck I killed there in '95.
Okay, this is
was with my shotgun.
The 160 we were talking about.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's walk through that. Dust, you want to take the lead on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jim, roll on as you go. We'll kind of break it down a little bit. We're going back to what year?
95.
1995.
Yeah, 1995.
How many deer had you killed before this?
Oh, probably maybe 7 deer, but just 2 small basket rack bucks. They're late 80s. By the late 80s, I was killing a doe pretty consistent, but always longing for that huge buck. And one of the main reasons that I concentrated more effort on bow season is during gun season, I very seldom even seen an antler. And I'm in Coshocton County, which, is usually one of the top producers of deer in particular and big bucks. Coshocton, Muskingum County.
Absolutely.
But just with the way everything's laid out, there's a lot of thick areas. And when the pressure gets on, unless somebody steps on them during gun season, you're not going to see them. And that's what I was running into. Now, fortunately, with this buck I shot that year, it was the first morning of gun season, and they wasn't pressured yet. It was everyday business for them. And that was the first year I bought one of them tree stands. You guys familiar with that?
Yeah, that was 95 for sure. A tree lounger.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yep.
Yeah, I remember that myself.
Yeah, that was the first year I used it. I was probably up, 25 feet or so. And it was a pretty quiet morning, usually hearing, average amount of shots. And finally behind me, in the brush, I heard what sounded like Carhartts ripping through briars is the first thing I thought of. And I thought, I was hunting on my grandma's property. There wasn't supposed to be anybody out there. And first thing I thought was, who's coming down through them briars in Carhartts ruining my hunt?
So you heard this behind you?
I heard it behind me. So I stood up on that. The tree lounge had one of them bow hunter attachments where you could stand up.
All right. What time of day was it?
Oh, it was before 9 a.m.
Gotcha.
I stand up, I turn around waiting to see somebody walk out of these briars, and I see a big rack. And he comes out of them briars shaking his head, standing there, sun shining on him. It's just a picture perfect moment. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Expecting to see a person walk out of here, and here's this nice buck. It was his antlers I heard coming through them briars. And I just happened to, I seen him, and I looked down directly across from me, and I just noticed 2 does. I didn't know if they were going to hurt me or help me at the time. And they were coming my way. They hadn't seen him yet. They were just working their way my way. And somebody might have jumped him on the next property. They wasn't running, but they were, they wasn't stopping to eat anything. They were going somewhere. About that time, he sees them, and being the end of November, 1st of December, rut is still going. He heads right for him, and when he comes into the woods, I was just in the edge of the woods, probably 30 yards. He was out into the field in the brushy area. When he gets close to him, they kind of spook and start coming right at me, and they brought him right by me, and broadside, probably 45 yards. I had a Remington 1100 with a scope, and he paused long enough before they went down in the ravine. I shot, I hit him, and he went down into the ravine, and then actually made it up the other side. And he was probably 75 yards away. And how they always do, a lot of times they'll stop and look back. What was that? And I put another one in, dropped him right there. And the funny thing about it, I got down out of this tree lounge, and went over to him and, counted points and was all excited. The first you guys have ever drug deer, your adrenaline rush is still going pretty strong. About the first 30 yards, you feel pretty strong. And then your adrenaline starts wearing off. Boy, he gets heavy.
Oh, yeah.
they're dragging, I had help then later on, but the funny thing is going back to get my tree lounge off that tree, I had a hard time reaching it. When I climbed down, I was so excited. I must have jumped out of that thing about, at least, I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm about 6 foot tall. I had a hard time reaching it. So I must have jumped out of that thing almost 9 feet. And I don't even remember it.
Jim, that's not good for you.
I know.
You shouldn't do that.
Know. I had a hard time getting it down from there, but I did it. And looking back, I thought, man, that's how excited I was.
Wow.
Crazy how your body gets all excited over a deer.
Oh yeah, and that's why I do it. It consumes a lot of my time and my son's time. I got him hunting early, and he's killed a buck every year since he's been hunting. He's 21. I got him hunting, I believe, when he's 9.
No kidding.
That's awesome.
He's killed some nice ones too. We between the two of us, I've killed a buck every year since 2004 when I started bow hunting, and between the both of us, I think we've got 20 some head mounts.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Tell us what you do with your vacation time, Jim.
I get 4 weeks of vacation a year. I save it all for November. I take the whole month of November off.
That's awesome. Jim, is there as a hunter, do you have any hunting goals that you need to accomplish that would be on your bucket list, so to speak?
Oh, I'd definitely like to bucket list hunt. I'd like to get to Canada sometime. They've got them 350-pound deer up there. I'd really like to do that sometime.
Gotcha.
Or maybe an elk.
Elk, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds very fair. So one of the things that you've been getting into, and I'm a fan of this as well, is that you've kind of taken your whole hunting lifestyle, love of hunting, and have introduced a product that you thought through, obviously, that kind of coincides with a lot of the mounts that you have been accumulating over the years, along with your son, to make it easier to hang stuff on the wall. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got into that whole endeavor?
Well, with the European mounts, I was like everybody else. I just usually hang them on a nail, or sometimes the wood plaques look nice, but it just wasn't for me. And I wanted something different. Hanging them on a nail, I always hated how they looked. Nose straight down at the ground. It just didn't complement the rack like it should. And so I started messing around with some stuff. I knew there had to be a better way, and did some trial and error, and ended up coming up with the EuroHanger. And my whole goal was just to make something to hang my skulls on. And I showed some buddies, and they're like, "Man, that's great. Hey, I want one." So I made a few for them, and they're like, "Man, you ought to sell these things." And so that meant I needed to mass produce them somehow. And I drew up some blueprints. I was a machinist for 18 years, so I had a little bit of experience with metalworking and forming and blueprints. So I drew up some blueprints, and I had them laser cut some out and bend them, and it works fantastic. You can't hardly see it. You screw it to the wall, you put the skull on it, using the brainstem hole, that's naturally in the deer. You don't have to modify. That's what I liked about it. I didn't want to have to modify the rack. I just wanted to hang it on something and have it look good on the wall. And that's exactly what it is.
Gotcha. So tell us about what it looks like.
It's a probably 3 inches high, maybe 2 inches, 2.5 inches wide, triangular shaped, and there's an inside cut I bend the tab out at about a 45-degree angle, and that tab goes into the brainstem hole, and it holds your mount just with that natural stance that the deer would have if it was standing there looking at you.
Okay.
Yep.
How did you invent this? You're a machinist, yes, and you have a background. Was it just something that popped in your head that this is exactly the design, or were there prototypes and trial and errors? How did that all develop?
Yeah, I tried a few different things. I tried like a piece of rebar, or like a round piece of pipe welded to a flat piece of steel, and with that, it didn't. A lot of times you get a big rack buck, and that it was kind of top heavy on the round ones, and it would want to go to the side. So I ended up going with the tab being just flat, and that helps it hold the skull from rotating. So and it not being two pieces, I needed it to be simple and inexpensive, because nobody wants to pay arm and a leg, for something just to hang their skull on. Because I mean, if you're going to buy a wooden plaque, you see a lot of that wooden plaque, and that's not what I wanted to display. I wanted to display the skull and the antlers. So I wanted something small, simple, and inexpensive. And with a couple different prototypes, I ended up with the finished product. And it's everything. It's easy to hang on the wall, 2 screws, and if you got your buddies over and they want to, a lot of times you like to get them antlers in your hand. You just reach up, grab it, pull it off, pass it around. They get done, you can hang it right back up.
Gotcha.
Like it was. Yeah.
I've played around with it. It's quite impressive, and it's heavy duty stuff. There's no messing around with this stuff. This item.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's some of the things that you put into the research and development. Dusty turned me on to them, and I think they're a fantastic idea. Dusty, you want to kind of throw in 2 cents of what you think about the product?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of them things that the EuroHanger is a head saver in my eyes. A lot of times, I think I've got 5 deer heads hanging with the EuroHanger right now at my place. 2 that are right here in the studio, and I can look at every time I come in. A lot of times you go in places and you see deer heads, European mountain deer heads, sitting on the floor, laying up on a shelf sideways where they really can't display them correctly. And the EuroHanger goes on the wall real simple. 2 screws. You slide the deer skull right at the brain stem hole. You slide over the EuroHanger in your skull mount. Your trophy mount is hanging on the wall. It's like I said, it's a head saver, a Euro saver to me. A lot of times deer heads lay around, they get the nose pieces kicked off of them, or you bump it and it knocks them off, breaks them off. The EuroHanger is testimonial that it does what it's supposed to. It displays your trophy European skull mounts.
That's cool. And can it? It looks like it's sturdy enough to hold even another mount. Like if you're just a regular old head mount, it might have a good hooking system to hook whatever is on the back of the wood of the mount too. Is that accurate?
You talking a full head, like a shoulder mount?
Yeah, shoulder mount.
No, I don't think that would work for that.
Okay.
I've never tried it, but yeah.
Okay.
You could hang your coat on it. That's for sure.
I'll be honest, I don't have any European skull mounts hanging on that right now, but I've got other stuff hanging on it, so it does work for other things. Yes.
Oh yeah. I've never thought of that, but it works on bear, antelope, anything similar size to a whitetail.
Okay.
Mule deer. I get a lot of requests for elk. It is not big enough for elk. I think weight-wise, it would hold an elk, but the elk antlers, by design, usually have stickers out the back that interfere with the wall. So, have
you ever weight tested it? Like, how much weight can you put on those things?
Oh, I've had 50 pounds hanging on it, and as long as your screws don't pull out of the wall, you're all right. But that hook's not going to bend. Well,
and I guess that was one of my thoughts here, is that so long as you're anchored to something with your screws, that thing's not bending. That thing is solid, which is very cool. How does it hang out, or how does it do outside? Like if you have, like for example, I have an outdoor screen room, which skulls do great in. It's not like a skull, unlike a shoulder mount, can be outside. Actually, it's kind of interesting. A universal way to mount or place a mount somewhere else. So I have it out in my screen house, and I it's all year round, and the skulls don't degrade or anything. It's great.
Right.
How would the EuroHanger do in outside conditions?
Oh, it comes painted. It would hold up great. I paint them with good quality Rust-Oleum paint. So yeah, it would hold up just fine outside.
Very cool. Excellent. I have a few questions, Jim. I just want to ask you real quick before we let you go.
Okay.
One of the things that we like to ask everybody, and it's different for everybody, if you had to bring something into the woods that if you left it in your truck, you would feel naked, what would it be? And it can't be a gun. What would your answer be? Do you have a special something that you have to go hunting with?
Well, if it's during the rut, if I left my Grunt at the truck, I would definitely go back to get it.
Okay.
Because I've killed at least 3 deer I can think of. If it wasn't for that Grunt, I never would have got them within range. That's a key item.
That's the one thing you got to have.
Especially during the rut.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
If you have one book that you love to reference to for hunting, is there a book out there that you love more than the others?
I've read most of. I haven't finished it because I do have a hard time finding time to read anymore. But the Chuck Adams' book, Become the Arrow.
Yep.
I think that's a great book. That's if I could. I told my son if I ever win the lottery and I've got nothing but time on my hands, I would love to try to do that Super Slam. There's a lot of neat stories in that book of the things he went through to complete that. You know, it pretty much. I don't know if you guys have read it, but he mortgaged his house a couple of times to finance that quest, and I think it cost him a marriage.
Wow.
But I suppose it depends on how you look at it. It paid off for him in the end. I mean, he got his name on Easton Arrows. So
right. I haven't actually read the book, but now that you just said that, I think I need to. That's interesting.
It's pretty neat. Yeah.
Yep.
He's got some. You figure he killed all 30-some species of America's big game, big enough for the record books. And that includes all the bears, and he's got some really neat bear stories in there.
Right.
With a bow.
Wow.
There was a reference in there where he'd been watching this big grizzly come out and get fish out of the water and then take it back into the woods. He did it a couple of times, and him and his guy, he had a guide with him with a gun.
Yeah.
And they timed it up where he was at the bottom of the bank. This bear was coming down to get his fish out of the water, and as he was getting close, he told his guide, he says, "Do not shoot this bear unless he's chewing on my leg." That hunt, he had about $10,000 in that hunt, and even if he shoots that deer, if he shoots that bear with his arrow, and that guy has to finish it off with a gun, it doesn't count for his Super Slam. So he told him, he says, "Do not shoot this thing unless it's chewing on my leg." And luckily, it worked out for him. It come down the bank, and he stuck an arrow in its chest, and you got a 50-50 chance it's either going to run at you or run away.
Right. Right.
And it run away, and he got it.
That's awesome.
I thought that was pretty neat.
That is pretty cool. All right, what's your number one hunting tip of all time?
Scouting. You got to know what deer are in your area. I run 6 trail cameras. Each year, I probably take 20,000 pictures a year, and I know exactly what deer is there, and that keeps me in the stand. Before trail cameras came out, I honestly, I'm sure it was a naive thought, but I thought there was only one big buck in the area. And, I'd get discouraged if I heard the neighbor kill a big buck. I'm thinking, well, that's it. Trail cams came on the market, and, we're probably getting, on one farm, we'll get 15 different bucks, and 5 of them are shooters. I would have had no idea if it wasn't for that trail cam. So I definitely run trail cams and use that as your scouting tool. That's the best tool on the market for scouting.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Know what deer's in your area.
That's a good one. That's a very good one.
That's
Go ahead, Dusty.
That's a great tip. Jim, tell us where you can find the EuroHanger at. Where can we purchase a EuroHanger?
eBay. Search the EuroHanger skull hanger on eBay, or check it out on Facebook, facebook.com/EuroHanger.
That's EuroHanger.
Yes.
And can we order? Are there order forms there, or do we have to give you a call to actually place an order?
There is a button on the Facebook page, Shop Now button, that will take you to the eBay page. Or I have taxidermists and whatnot contact me directly. I offer quantity discounts for taxidermists that want to buy in bulk.
Gotcha. Very cool. And is there a phone number that we should call if we had other questions about it?
Sure. 740-502-5445.
Fantastic. Well, Jim, this has been an incredible journey with you on a couple of hunts, one to Missouri, one in Ohio. And I think your product's great, and thanks for telling us a little bit about how you developed that. But it's been an honor, and thanks for joining us and talking some deer hunting tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Very cool. And Jim tells one heck of a good deer story.
Absolutely. That's amazing how that turned out. It sometimes when you think it's all right and it's all happening just perfect, there's always that end result that, sometimes is bittersweet.
Yeah. I love the product that he also has invented, the EuroHanger. But I think it's fascinating how people think that they get a little nervous, and Jim did tell us he was a little nervous coming on the show. But what I loved about it was that as everybody that has been nervous coming onto the show, they open up and they relax and they chill out and they just go back to the moment in time when the big deer kill happened or the big hunt happened. And it's almost like they close their eyes and go back in time and you open up, and it's the best, awesome feeling that you can ever imagine. It's just great listening to people get excited about that exact hunt they've already been on years ago. And we went back to 1995. How good is that?
That's amazing. That's one of the great things about being on this side of the mic.
Yeah.
Is to see and feel the emotion in somebody's voice when they get excited about the story that they're telling.
Yep.
If I ever lose that, Jay, I probably wouldn't be sitting here.
That's right. Now, if you have a big deer that you shot, I would encourage you, and you would like to tell your story, even if you wouldn't, I would invite you to tell your story on this show, because I know that we can get that story out of you like we have gotten the same types of stories out of other people and got you to just chillax, basically, and tell that tale like it deserves to be told. And that's what we do here on the Big Buck Registry. We've been doing this for a while, and we just like, not only do we like listening to deer stories, we like telling them, but we like to get people to tell stories in their natural tongue and hear it as though you're sitting on the porch at deer camp after the hunt. That's what we do.
It's amazing. Even if you're a little nervous and you're a little hesitant to contact us, that you want to tell your story. Definitely do. I think that once you get in touch with us and you get to know us a little bit, that you're going to be just as comfortable with us as you are with your friends, or even a sibling that you hunt with often. You're going to settle in, and we're going to make the best of the story and bring it out of you and get that excitement and the thrill of the hunt. That's what we chase after. We're thrill chasers as far as stories.
Yep. And I would encourage you to, if you'd like to start that process, go to bigbuckregistry.com. That's our website. Or if you'd like to submit a photo, it's bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, or just shoot me an email, myhunt@bigbuckregistry.com, and we'll just get chatting about it. And if it's something you want to do, hey, then you need to tell your story on the Big Buck podcast. Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week?
Yeah, we do. This week I'm going to get into something personally that I do, and I want to share it.
Okay.
A lot of questions get thrown at me by somebody that's not really the best hunter. And nobody's a great pro hunter. It takes a lot of years.
Right.
And you may never master it. You may kill a lot of animals, but I don't think it ever gets mastered. Anyway, you get questions asked, and some of the questions are silly. And I'll admit to that. But it's okay. You know, when you first started, you had silly questions too. Take the time to spread on the knowledge to the younger hunting generations. Take a few minutes out of your day and stop and talk with them. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
It may be that one little silly question that you throw out the answer to that seals the deal on that young man or lady killing their first animal.
Right.
You know, take all questions seriously, even though it may be silly in your mind, and that's okay. But if it wasn't for somebody helping you or answering a question you may have had when you first got going, you may not be able to kill your first animal. So, you know, take all the young kids' questions serious and try to help them out.
That's great. Yep. Could not have said it better myself. Very cool. Well, thanks to Jim Snow for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast and telling some great deer stories. Dusty, how can we find you when you're not on the mic?
Facebook.com/Chubby Gobbler. Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. You can also shoot me an email at dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Jay, how can the people reach out to you?
First, I would love to invite you to join us and download our new podcast app player specifically for this show. That's bigbuckregistry.com/app. You can find it on the iTunes store. You can also find it on Google Play now, which is very cool. You can visit us at bigbuckregistry.com/Facebook if you'd like to check out our Facebook page. Twitter is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. You can go to YouTube. We have some videos up there, bigbuckregistry.com/YouTube. And if you would like to send in a picture of your buck, it's bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. All the instructions are right there for you to check out. There's a video instructional tutorial right there where you can learn how to get your buck featured in front of 150,000 plus fans that are diehard deer hunters like yourself. And if you have an outdoor product, as we had talked about in the beginning of the show, you can actually go to bigbuckregistry.com/sponsor and learn how you can get your product filled in as a sponsorship slot for this show, as a pre-roll, a mid-roll, or maybe in some videos on Facebook. And let's see, what am I missing here? Oh, and if you are a listener of this show and you would like to pledge your support for the show, go to bigbuckregistry.com/pledge, PLEDGE, pledge. Other than that, you can send us an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com or dusty@bigbuckregistry.com, or give us a call at 724-613-2825 and leave us a voicemail with either feedback about the show, something you'd like to see us do on the show, something you didn't like on the show, or if you have a deer story, a quick deer story to tell, that's a great place to leave it. If you don't have time to jump on the record button with us, then that's a good place to do it. I think that's it, Dusty.
Big buck everywhere. Big buck.
Love that, by the way.
Awesome. Yeah, great show. Thanks for tuning in with us again this week. Man, what an amazing time we had with Jim Snow.
Yep. Great deer storyteller. Love that.
We look forward to the next show to bring you all. Man, this gets better every week, Jay.
Love it. Every single week. I'm Jay Scott.
And I'm Dusty Phillips.
This is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.